Good morning. My name is Maggie Sanchez, and I am Interim Executive Director of Doctors Without Walls, Santa Barbara Street Medicine. The mission of Doctors Without Walls, Santa Barbara Street Medicine is to provide volunteer medical care for the most vulnerable and underserved populations in Santa Barbara County.
Very good.
It is also to provide education and training for Doctors Without Walls volunteers in order to promote the excellent practice of humanitarian medicine in our own community. Doctors Without Walls has approximately 200 volunteers. 100 are clinicians and support staff, and the other 100 are pre-med students from UCSB. The illnesses that we are able to treat are pretty much urgent care. So we do wound care, we do infections, we do skin diseases.
And this is my primary hand too, left.
We do podiatry. In 2019, we served 3,903 people.
These guys are a blessing here because without them, we would suffer.
Our next stop was at Pershing Park to check on a gentleman who's waiting for an electric wheelchair. He's been in and out of skilled nursing homes and even had his own apartment at one time. And he lost all of his housing. Sal has a wheelchair for you. Motorized. A motorized one, and they're trying to charge it right now. We checked on him. He refused help. We'll check on him tomorrow. So we're going to try and get him some medication so he can see his doctor.
We've been so blessed to have Kathy Molkoy come on board as our outreach worker. She's been a volunteer with Doctors Without Walls for many years, and she's a retired nurse from Cottage Hospital, and she has known this population forever, so they know her, they trust her, and for us, it was just such a perfect fit for her to come on board, and she's been Doctors Without Walls is so excited to partner with SB Act with what is being termed the Mobile Neighborhood Navigation Centers. What we've seen in the parks is we've seen such disenfranchised people who are unable to access services, to help them get housed. And as we all know, the goal here is to get this population housed. What we're doing is we're joining with this group with SB Act, and it will contain all providers in one location in a park setting. Currently, we are piloting at Alameda Park, and there'll be meal share there also.
This is the Alameda Park Meal Sharing Collaborative. So those are non-perishable foods, so people can take them with them. And then pretty soon we'll have pizza and stuff from Westmont. So Westmont's doing the pizza and fruit and dinner tonight. So we kind of have both things going on.
So one cheese and one pepperoni. Yeah, you bet.
There's 21 different partners, including Doctors Without Walls, Showers of Blessing. So really it's kind of a holistic meal sharing to build friendships, dignity, and also bring solutions and resources to people on the streets.
I'm Adam McKegg, and behind me is Adam's Angels. We have about 100 and 150 volunteers. It's not only people without homes, but it's people that have lost jobs, that are in need of food, clothing. The children need food, clothing.
Say hi, Louie! Care for Paws is a 501c3. We've been in Santa Barbara County for over 10 years now. One of the services that we do provide also is working with the homeless, provide food for animals.
They help us out with food and treats when we need it, and could I ask for more? I'm very grateful and I'm thankful.
And now we are so grateful to say that our clients know us by name. They love it when we come to the park. They trust us simply because we're trying to heal the entire person. This is the way they will survive. This is the way they will lead healthy lives, is to get them inside. So very excited that we're moving forward in the right direction.
PATH's mission is to end homelessness for individuals, families, and communities. We envision a world where everyone has a place to call home. PATH is a statewide agency, and we tailor our programs and services to each community we serve. We are known for our person-centered outreach, supportive housing services, intensive case management, housing navigation, employment assistance, and community engagement. We believe that meeting people where they're at and doing whatever it takes are critical to helping people get off the streets and into a home of their own. We're so grateful to the Women's Fund for this generous level of support. We know people want their donations to go directly to people who need it, and that couldn't be truer with this partnership. This vehicle provides us reliability that we can pick up food donations every day and cook nutritious meals for our residents. A warm, healthy meal is one of the most essential parts of what we do. This allows our residents to be nourished so they can focus on their other needs: healthcare, employment, and housing. This reliability allows our team members to focus on all of the other essential work we do. We don't have to worry about our old van breaking down and possibly missing a meal. We collect approximately 800 pounds of food per day. We keep about 600 pounds of food, and the cost to feed our residents is about $1,000 a day, so these donations are hugely beneficial. For the calendar year of 2021, we served just over 33,000 meals to residents of our interim housing site. The amount of food that we distribute to other programs is roughly around 300 pounds a day. And some of the groups we provide food to include the Falding Hotel, Johnson Court, Wellbridge, CityNet, Veggie Rescue, who also serves over 50 nonprofits, and Girls Inc. Volunteers are the main support for our food program with the collection, processing, and preparation of our meals. Over 100 volunteers come through the door each month to help keep our food program up and running.
I just look in the walk-in to see what I have to work with the next day, because there's no way of forecasting what's going to come in. And then at least I know that I have something to start with, and then as things come in, I'll start adding to my menu. I cook the way I like to eat, and I'm a good eater. You know, I like a lot of spice in my food, but not enough, not spicy where it's hot. I've learned to cater to the clientele. Well, our fresh vegetables, all our foods come in from Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Sprouts. So that's all good for you, you know. The secret with the fresh vegetables, you got to utilize them within 2 days because they don't have preservatives, so you have to cook them quick. And we get a wide variety, you know. It's mainly bell peppers, onions, potatoes. Like today we got artichokes. It depends what we get. Sometimes we get canned vegetables if we go to the food bank. It's an art for me. You know, for me it's an art. I look at it as like playing music. I jazz, you know, you just create with the whole thing, or painting, you know. You could paint a picture, but I envision a picture before I even start cooking. So I know what it's gonna look like at the end, and I try to get to that from my, you know, menu that I have in my head.
Broadly, PATH provides shelter for 100 people at any given time and serves about 450 people throughout the year. Our services and programs are person-centered, trauma-informed, and they focus on housing first. We know that each person's episode of homelessness is as unique as they are, and solutions should meet these unique needs. Every person we serve has one thing in common: they need a home. Once the fundamental need for housing has been met, then that person can shift their attention onto other problem areas in their life. Give someone a home, connect them with the resources they need to get back on their feet, and you will transform a life forever.
Vehicular homelessness is folks that are residing in their vehicles because they do not have a safe, stable place to be at night. And it is quite prevalent in Santa Barbara County. According to the 2020 point in time count, 51% of unsheltered individuals are actually residing in their vehicles. And of all of the folks experiencing homelessness in the county, it's about 33% are in their vehicles. There's no real one category, one size fits all for folks experiencing vehicular homelessness. It can be anywhere from 19-year-old who just left home or who's leaving a difficult circumstance, up into folks in their 80s, even 90s, and honestly just folks that can no longer afford the current rental market. If a new property owner comes in, buys out the apartment complex that the individual's been in for a decade at 10 years ago's rent, they can't make it in this current market when disability and social security benefits are roughly $1,000 a month. Individuals and families that are residing in their vehicle, it's meant to be a temporary situation, and we come in and help come alongside them and provide those supports during that temporary situation. And because oftentimes they don't consider themselves to be homeless, they wouldn't seek out homeless services and resources that are available to them. They might have no clue of what resources are available to them. So Safe Parking Program, we come alongside and we provide the connection to those resources. And once someone has those resources available, they're more ready to be connected back into permanent housing. They have more support to be able to stabilize and seek employment and seek out mental health services and ultimately get back into housing. And without the support of a safe parking program, oftentimes these folks would just end up languishing on the street, not knowing where to go from there. And so safe parking, providing those resources, providing that safe place to stabilize, is able to shorten the length of time that someone is experiencing homelessness.
My name is Antoinette, and I was getting my COVID shot when actually the woman who was giving it to me had, I was sharing with her my story, and she suggested that I call safe parking. Well, I wanted housing. So if I had to take baby steps to be able to get back into housing, then that's what I was willing to do. When I first met with Cora, we visited for quite some time. I suffer from PTSDs, and I was delighted that there was this beautiful parking lot that is a woman's only parking lot. I have a part-time job. I love my boss, and I'm just trying to kind of regroup, you know. Financially, it's a bit of a struggle with housing being so exorbitantly expensive, and it would appear that they've raised prices since the pandemic, you know, and it's not just the you know, vets or the drug addicts. You know, there's all sorts of people that are homeless right now in Santa Barbara County. This is my 2013 Ford Flex. This is my bedroom with my warm socks and hat to wear. And I know that every time I've ever needed a place to live, I've always had a place. This is the longest I have ever been without a place to live, because I've moved a lot. And I've always been provided for. I have many angels that have been helping me. It's been an amazing time, actually. It's been a healing time, a growing time. New Beginnings has given me a therapist that is probably the best therapist I think I've ever had, and I've grown so much. And I think the greatest gift that she's given me is that she sees me.
This is a 2003 Ford E350. It has a turbo diesel, the 7.3, which I went diesel instead of gas because longevity. It is a 14-foot box truck. I took the roll door off. I put it back a foot, put in this door. All this was recycled, reused, and refurbished. I was residing in a tiny home, and they had given me a place to park at night with security cameras, where I was allowed to be. There's not any privacy when you're on the road, living on the road like that. There's always somebody walking past your car, walking in front of your car, walking behind your car. I couldn't put money in a 401k. I couldn't afford it. I was working 60 hours a week just to pay rent, which, you know, because of the low pay, hurts your Social Security. You know, so that's not very much to live on. What are you gonna do? If you don't have a housing voucher, you can't survive. you cannot survive. The program has been great, and like I said, even the people that were in the safe parking program were very supportive. The other people that you park next to, whatever you need, a jump, your car fixed. So even the people that are in the program are very helpful to the other people in the program. I didn't have a credit history. That was kind of, so they were willing to help with double the deposit to ensure that it wouldn't be a problem. I also could not do steps, so I needed ground level. I also have a service dog. So that was a lot of barriers to finding housing that we all grouped together and really searched. And after 6 months, I got to land here, and it's been wonderful. My choice to be in a smaller place that was furnished to move into, it wasn't so bare and big and hard to make homey. It felt like home almost immediately. I have great neighbors, a great landlord, a great neighborhood, and a beautiful place.
Thanks so much for joining us today as we explore 3 of our 2021 grantees: PATH, Santa Barbara Street Medicine Doctors Without Walls, and the New Beginnings Safe Parking Program. I think the videos did a great job of explaining how our grants have supported these amazing organizations. We hope you enjoyed them and would like to thank the folks from each of these agencies who worked with us to make them, as well as the Women's Fund team that produced them. My name is Maureen Ellenberger, and I will be the moderator of our discussion today. I am a Women's Fund member, a former researcher, and a former board member. Today, we are so very lucky to have 3 leaders of these organizations joining us to give us a quick update on their grants in the last year. In addition, with these 3 experts, we hope to provide you all with the update on the progress that has been made into moving people home. Over the last few years, much has been done to begin the transition for many of our fellow community members experiencing homelessness to a place of their own, with a door to close and a supportive environment. As you may know, there are often roadblocks to this process, starting with the number of available places to live and getting the correct supportive services to help a person through their transition and to ensure that they can be successful. The good news in Santa Barbara is that through housing vouchers allocated to the county, of which 80 were to the Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara, 100% were utilized. This is in comparison to a national utilization average of 15.9%. This is a result of new programs that increase landlord incentives, as well as attaching supportive service to these units. While we still have a way to go, the progress is visible, and we hope to give you a better picture of what is important and needed to make significant progress in reducing the number of people without homes. So let's get started and do a quick round of introductions and updates on our 2021 grant awards from each of our wonderful panelists. First, let me introduce you to Jennifer Hark-Dietz, the Executive Director of PATH. Jennifer joined PATH just this past January and is responsible for the organization statewide. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. We are so grateful for this amazing grant. It has made a difference in so many lives, as you've seen from the video, not just at PATH, but actually across the community as we look at food scarcity. So we are forever grateful for this and the partnership, really, because the investment really shows that you're invested in supporting our most vulnerable and making sure they have their basic needs.
Thanks, Jennifer. Our next panelist needs no introduction for many of you. Please meet Maggie Sanchez, the founder and executive director of Doctors Without Walls and a Women's Fund member. Maggie, can you give us a quick overview of your grant and what this last year has been like for your organization?
Hi, everyone. As you all know, Doctors Without Walls, we provide free medical care to the unsheltered and marginally sheltered populations who live in South Santa Barbara County. The Women's Fund provided funding for a part-time nurse outreach worker to help with COVID-related medical encounters, including vaccinations. The grant was highly successful because daytime medical outreach was critically needed, and we were able to vaccinate over 60% of the county's homeless population. In 2021, DWW Daytime Outreach Team had 1,045 client medical encounters, which was 60% of the total Doctors Without Walls medical encounters of 1,535.
Thanks, Maggie. And Christine, our third panelist is Christine Schwartz. She is the Executive Director of New Beginnings. New Beginnings runs the Safe Parking Program, but also does so many more things, including mental health counseling, supportive services and housing for veterans, and coaching on life skills and parenting. Christine, the video was amazing. Can you give us a quick update on the Safe Parking Grant?
Absolutely. Thank you, Maureen. And hello, everyone. And thank you so much for your support this past year. The grant, the Women's Fund grant, has been incredibly helpful to us in that one of the main things that we spent the funds on was on adding a new homeless services director. And she spends half of her time working with our veterans program and the other half working with the Safe Parking program. And it has been life-changing in terms of the amount of support that we have been able to provide to staff, as well as the her ability to interact with all of our community providers and partners, such as County Mental Health, Cottage Hospital, County Housing and Community Development, et cetera. So that's been a game changer in terms of the efficiency and effectiveness of the program. Your funds have also been incredibly helpful in helping us to increase the number of people that we've served overall. We will exceed the number of unduplicated people that we've served, as well as the number of people who have proceeded to case management. Your funds have also been very helpful in helping us to fund things like insurance, which are very critical and difficult to find for our Safe Parking program because of the unique nature of the kind of program that it is, as well as paying for restroom facilities, which have been very scarce, especially during COVID, and other essential needs. The flexible funds have been critical for that. So we really, really appreciate the support. And so far, the grant has been very successful.
Thanks, Christine. I'm so happy that you're all here with us. So let's jump into some discussion. I have some questions to get us started, but because this is a discussion, please feel free to jump in with thoughts, ideas, or opinions. Okay, let's start with our first question. We'll start with Jennifer. Jennifer, in your role right now, you are serving over 150 cities in 5 regions. Can you talk a little bit perhaps about some trends that you're seeing in moving people that are experiencing homelessness and into their own homes?
Yes, would love to. So PATH's mission is to end homelessness for individuals, families, and communities. And I think the community part is what really is unique for us. We adapt our approach to each community, recognizing that the homeless population can be different and the resources can be different. And what we're seeing really is trends that even though COVID-19 upended everyone's life, it also helped us move faster in many areas. So one of the things that we're grateful for is Project Home Key, which is a state initiative that added funding for acquisition of hotels and motels that could be immediately converted to either interim housing or even go directly to permanent housing. And that quick pace that Home Key told us we could do is something we hope that continues. That momentum for throughout, whether, hopefully COVID's on the way down, but throughout kind of the next few years, because we know the crisis of homelessness isn't going away. So I would say, the quick pace, recognizing we need to have units online as soon as possible with those supportive services. So the flexibility that was talked about is really important because each person's homeless episode is unique. So we need to make sure we wrap around them, get them that mental health treatment, that substance use, food, shelter, all of those things in order for them to be successful.
Thanks, Jennifer. Also, could you just talk for just a moment about, just so everyone's on the same page, a little bit about the differences between the different categories of homelessness?
Sure. So a lot of folks think of chronic homelessness as the number one kind of marker for who's out there, but it's actually a smaller percentage. And what chronic means when you talk about it is over a year of homelessness, typically with a disabling condition. So that could be a mental health disability or physical disability. And so that usually is a smaller percentage of the people that we see. And then you also hear words like episodic. Those are folks who the research shows they're usually younger and they're coming in and out of homelessness. They might have really difficult time maintaining employment. They're really kind of, they can end up chronic very easily. And then you have what you might think of as transitional, or folks that need that kind of one-time support or couple times support. You get them into interim housing, you help with first and last month's rent and those wraparound services, and you can really see a lot of success. And then what we're seeing in the news, and you all probably might know someone who's even experienced what we call hidden homelessness. This might be people who are couch surfing or living in places not meant for human habitation, like a garage that's not converted, or even an RV that's not workable. Like vehicular homelessness can be hidden. So we talk about a lot of those different languages, and those are kind of some of the explanations that you might see in your community.
Thanks, Jennifer. Maggie, as a charter member of the Neighborhood Navigation Center pilot that you spoke about briefly in your video, can you give us an update on how it's going and how Doctors Without Walls is currently participating? And if you can, how you see that role evolving?
So Doctors Without Walls has always, stayed in our lane. Street medicine, urgent care, and education, that's always been our mission for the last 14 years. It's what we've done. But the pandemic changed all of that. And suddenly we were delivering food, primary care, clothing, and we were doing case management. And now that the pandemic is easing, we have found incredible partners who now provide that food, primary care, clothing, and case management. And these partnerships have created a highly useful network for providing basic services to the populations that we serve. So the vision of the Neighborhood Navigation Center actually came from Doctors Without Walls roots. In the very beginning, we followed the local meal shares in Pershing and Alameda Park, and our street medicine teams would go out from there to the surrounding areas and seek out those who needed medical care. And the people involved in those early years who really understood the power of this particular model have now come together in 2020 and created what we now call the Neighborhood Navigation Centers, with loosely binding signed MOUs. Each partner commits to providing services at the NNC.
Thanks. And can you talk about how all the organizations communicate? Can you talk a little bit about the weekly wrap call, for example?
Right. So actually, it's a twice a month NNC partner call with a site visit usually. So we see each other 3 times a month, but it's a call to check in and create a space for collaboration and help. It's on one of those calls that I discovered the need for our Federal Department of Social Services, our DSS, to attend our NNC to provide access to, to federal funding for food and medical insurance and housing, etc. And it just so happened at the same time that Santa Barbara Public Library, who is also an NNC member, provides support services to people who need to become document ready to move forward in their successful transition into housing. And so due to the power of that NNC collaborative DSS, Santa Barbara Public Library and the NNC are forming a partnership that will enable the library to apply for federal programs on behalf of our unsheltered clients. So what we've done is we've taken the burden off of DSS, the federal agency that's involved with and funding for, things like Project Room Key, CalFresh. One of the things that I did not know is how much work the Department of Social Services does around our UCSB students. In August, when they all arrive here, they're all starving and they all need, some sort of food assistance. And so by us collaborating with them, by the public library becoming what we call a community-based organization that represents DSS, it allows them to get into the back side of DSS and really kind of do the work of someone who would work at the Department of Social Services. So, the NNC right now has almost 27 partners. And for me, it's a vision of a place where our unsheltered can go and they can find just about any service that they need, or at least a referral to any service. And so, and then I just want to share too that we, Doctors Without Walls, has created a really strong relationship with behavioral wellness at the NNC. In fact, we park our vans right next to each other. Doctors Without Walls, will ask our clients a few mental health questions at the beginning of every intake. And sometimes when we find that a client is in crisis or there is something going on, we're able to do what I call a soft handoff, where we simply walk the person over to the behavioral wellness van, and suddenly they're in the services that they need at that time, and continued services as a whole, so that everybody understands. When we started the NNC, there was one pilot location in Alameda Park, and as of March 30th of this month, we will have one at the Santa Barbara commuter lot, which started back in January, and another one that's now going to be on the east side, and that location will be disclosed later in the month. So exciting stuff, just like Jennifer said.
And Christine, I love the video of Sally and Antoinette. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the services that you are providing for them and how that all wraps around them. I know the concept of wraparound is really, really important. I mean, I thought seeing how happy Sally was in her home was just, an amazing thing. So I want to thank you for allowing us to film that, because I think it's just a really great story for everyone to see.
Sure. I think one of the most rewarding times of working with the clients that we work with is when we introduce somebody into their new home. It's a palpable sort of relief, and you can see in their body language and their countenance and their facial expression. It's just that, like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to, I don't have to worry. I don't have to carry that with me. And it really is, it's very, moving, very compelling. So what New Beginnings does in terms of our work with the Safe Parking Program is two things. We provide an overnight shelter for people who live in their vehicles, and we also provide what are called rapid rehousing services. And the shelter portion of what we do is very simply, we provide safe overnight parking for families and individuals who live in their vehicles. The parking is monitored. We have outreach workers who connect with our clients who are in the lots during the evenings and at night and in the morning when they leave. And during the day, our case management staff work with them to provide supportive services. These supportive services are pretty much categorized under what's called rapid rehousing services. And you can break that down into housing navigation and housing retention. So when we intake a client into safe parking, we'll go through all of the paperwork that's necessary for them to be in the shelter part, but then we sit down and say, okay, let's be housing focused and let's talk about housing. And so each client prepares what's called a housing stabilization, case management plan. And they will come up with, several goals that, are involved with their being able to transition into housing. For each person, it's different. It might include finding employment. It might include obtaining benefits, might be a combination of that. Maybe they're applying to school. Everybody's different depending on their age, depending on their income situation. Are they a veteran? Are they not a veteran? So it's very, very unique and tailored for each person. So our case management staff will review all of that with them, and then begins the housing navigation process. And so we have staff who, all they do is look for landlords to partner with. We partner with an organization called Partners in Housing Solutions, with all of the housing authorities, with a lot of private landlords throughout the county. And we help place people in what's called scattered site housing. So the apartment building down the street might have two of our clients, mixed in there with people who are not previously homeless. And we help people find housing throughout the county. We help them with applications, preparing applications, meeting with landlords, inspecting the units, and then eventually moving into the unit. And once our clients are, have found their apartment, we will work with them to see what types of, household items do they need? Do they need beds? Do they need, I think we actually solely support a mattress store out in Goleta because we buy so many beds from them all of the time. And so, what do they need? Do they need, do they need dishes? Do they need bedding? Do they need towels? What is it that they need to make that apartment into a home? So we help people with that. And then we transition the person to what's called our housing retention services. And we have an assessment, which is very detailed and comprehensive, where we work with each person to say, okay, what are the areas that you need help with in order to remain stable in your housing? So again, income is one of the primary areas, but there's also things like, physical health, right? Do you need, it's not unusual that people's physical health has gone by the wayside when they've been, on the street or homeless for a long time. So maybe, they're not paying attention to their annual checkups, or they haven't been, or they're experiencing physical symptoms that they haven't been able to afford to go to the doctor for. So we, we'll do an overall housing retention assessment. And then if necessary and appropriate, we'll do what's called our healthcare navigation assessment. And that goes into a deeper dive in terms of physical and mental health needs, and connecting people to primary care, to dentists, to specialists, and everything that's involved with that. And then, we look at things like socialization and connection to community. And many of our clients might have a disability, or they might not be able to work, or they're seniors, but it's really helpful for them to be able to thrive in their new home, that they be connected to some types of, social support. That might also include connecting them to in-home supportive services, or any number of different services that can help them, again, remain in their housing. And then we provide case management as needed while they are settling in. We also provide financial assistance. We likely will have provided them with a security deposit and rental assistance. And we work with what's called a progressive engagement approach. And that means that we help people in the manner and to the extent that they need it. So that maybe they need full assistance with rental support in the beginning, and then we sort of back it down so that they get to a point where they're able to financially maintain their housing on their own, and maintain their housing in terms of just overall stability. And then, housing retention can last anywhere from 6 months to 12 months to more than that, depending on each individual person. And that's pretty much the cycle that people go through from beginning to end in terms of, finding housing and staying in housing.
So Jennifer, I know that PATH also is doing a lot of that work as well. Is there anything you would add to what Christine talked about that you think would be valuable for people to know?
I think Christine did a great job of laying out all the complexities. Just hearing all the different things, right, that we have to wrap around, I think is so important for people to know, especially people who aren't in this system every day. When we think about how hard it is to access and then to stay, that's why I think you hear all of us saying these supportive services are so critical, because you need a person that's helping people navigate all the different systems that Christine mentioned. I often think about, how would I do that on my own when you're in a crisis period, right? Like homelessness is a crisis. You don't know where you're going to sleep. You don't know what you're going to eat. You might not feel well. So having that advocate, that person that helps with, all of those things, that keeps the list, the tally running, reminds you of your appointments, is a partner in solving homelessness for this person is really critical.
Thanks, Jennifer. So I guess I have a question for all of you, and you can take turns or however you want to answer, but what changes need to be made to make this process work better? So
We're really good. Santa Barbara's great. I mean, I've been doing this now with this organization for 14 years. I'm really great at starting stuff. You know, our community agencies are really great at starting stuff. They, you know, right now the big push, you know, the pandemic, let's get all these people up off the street, because the only people on the street were the unsheltered, because everybody else was sheltering in their home. So the cities and the governor and everybody, you know, all this money gets being pushed and pushed and pushed into homelessness. And then you're going to see what's going to happen is it's just going to start to fade back as support services, as we start to really ask for funding to continue, because Doctors Without Walls knows for a fact that if you keep someone housed for a minimum of a year, they will stay housed. But in that year, if they're not given the supportive services they need, they probably will leave at some point in time. I mean, it just needs to be, it's that critical that if we really want this to be successful, what we need to do is we need to continue down the same path we're on. And we need to provide and create policies and procedures for how we keep somebody, you know, in housing for as long as they need to before we even put them into permanent housing. I would say transitional housing, because, you know, these people come, our clients coming straight off the street. I mean, you know, we had a woman that we helped, you know, with support services and wraparound care. She'd been on the streets for 27 years. She had no idea how to grocery shop. You know, she had no idea how she had, you know, she had diabetes. She had no idea how to manage that. So, you know, who does that? How do we do that? Well, we're doing that collaboratively now. I mean, we're all coming together and we're all trying to, you know, to wrap all of our collective arms around these people so that we don't lose them. I mean, you know, we're talking to New Beginnings. New Beginnings is talking to us. We're talking to Pat. Pat's talking to us. And it just kind of goes down the line with, you know, public health and even down to city council members who call and ask what's going on. But for me, it's all about community awareness. So, you know, our community agencies have been highly successful at getting unsheltered into transitional housing, and people are getting housed. But the problem lies in the need for continued support services to be available to provide the safety net of services that help people stay housed. So Doctors Without Walls.
Yeah, so the two things I think that are really important, one definitely is the retention. The amount of time it takes to help one household, one family, one individual can be really significant. And we quite frankly can't have enough of supportive services staff in our community. You know, with permanent supportive housing complexes that we have, we often have to reduce the time to half time or quarter time for a particular complex, and it just isn't, it's not sufficient time. And you know, we can't put enough of resources into housing retention.
Christine, I'm sorry, can I just ask, when you say we have to reduce the time, we have to reduce the time because of funding?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. I think that's
Sure.
really important.
No, there's insufficient funding at the government level to keep staffing at a lot of the, you know, both permanent supportive housing complexes as well as scattered site housing. It's just insufficient. And again, there can't be enough of resources to that. The other issue that we've had, and all communities have had over the last couple of years, is we have different levels of assistance that needs to be provided now. So once HUD implemented the coordinated entry system and the mandate to work with people who are chronically homeless and who are the people who are most vulnerable, you know, when there's a list of, you know, 5,000 people who are homeless, and the focus is on the people in the first two tiers or the first 100 people, all of those other people aren't being attended to. And while many of them will sometimes self-resolve, there's some of them that won't, and then they fall further into homelessness. And so much attention and resource has been dedicated to, you know, to the people who are most vulnerable, which is understandable, but at the, you know, at the consequence of not serving the people who, you know, are sort of on the edge. And we've seen some of those people fall further into homelessness as a result. And so having flexible funds that are not dictated by area median income. You know, if somebody makes, because you have to do these calculations, and if somebody makes 52% of the area median income, they're out of luck. They can't get assistance. And it's such a, it's a couple of dollars, and that couple of dollars, or how they're assessed using one of the assessment tools and how they're scored, can mean the difference between them being, helped or not helped, and ultimately falling further into homelessness. So having flexible funding to help the people who are just, just below, but still really need assistance is really important.
That's a really good point. Jennifer, now do you want to talk a little bit about policy and some of the things that you're working on?
Sure, yeah, and I think, both of my colleagues raised up so many things that we know as the sector that we need. And I think what we've learned really in the last couple of years is that we need to raise that up to our policymakers in Washington, at the state level, at the local level, and really be able to show the data of why that is. So one of the things we're working on, it's the first time we've ever co-sponsored a bill, actually, AB 1816, but it's around reentry services. And I think, as you all, we've talked about the vulnerability of folks, but that's also a huge population that ends up homeless throughout the state. And when you can identify wraparound services as people are exiting the justice system, we can help folks stabilize and not reoffend. So we're trying to get into the mind, I guess, of everyone that let's change the flow, but we advocate, I think, at a community level really well. And I think bringing all the cohorts together, the coalitions to do that at the federal level and at the state level is really important. The other thing we're really working on, and Christine kind of touched a bit on this, right? Once folks fall into homelessness, there's already trauma that's occurred there. How do we prevent homelessness from happening? How do we work with our foster care systems? Work kind of with our, unemployment, those mainstream systems where we know aid is going to end. How are we closely linked to those systems so that perhaps we can help folks avoid falling into homelessness in general? So I think that's going to be a large push of our work in the next couple years as well, is just having a stronger voice to try to bring more supportive services, but also try to reduce the number of people falling in.
How do we measure success in Santa Barbara? I mean, both short-term and long-term.
I think my definition of success has probably changed over the last year or two. And we have housed a lot of really vulnerable people in the last few years, some of whom have, quite frankly, either passed away or have transitioned on to a skilled nursing facility or assisted living. And helping somebody in their last phase of life, especially, live with dignity, live with support, live with assistance, have people who are there to help you navigate through some very difficult decisions and times, is really meaningful work. And if we help somebody come off the street and go into housing who eventually transitions to a skilled nursing facility, that's success. That's really valuable and important. I mean, ideally, everybody we house will remain housed and become employed or be able to afford their housing. But if we can help people have dignity and remain off the street in whatever way that looks, I think that's success.
Thanks, Christine.
Alongside the homeless forever. And, we don't even see it sometimes. I mean, it's just everywhere. And so, we walk over people, we hand people, our leftover food, we're good, we walk off, and it's kind of, there's a kind of a dullness in our society here, our community here, because we've just become, just so over it that we don't even really see it. So for me, it's keeping it in the view. It's keeping it as an important subject. It's got to be a conversation that's ongoing all the time. It's not when I don't just, do my grant report, I actually call my donors and I tell them, this is what's happening out there. You're not seeing it, you're not hearing about it, but this is the truth. This is what we're dealing with right now. And I think it's super important to also say that, we're collaborating, that for the first time ever, here in our community. You know, all agencies have come together with the one goal of getting people up off the street and into permanent housing. How long that's going to take or what that looks like as it's going, you know, we're learning as we go along. Kind of ends up going, whew, well, that's over. Great, we're good, you know, and we're kind of going to go back to where we were pre-pandemic, where it just was not all that visible. And so I think it's really important that we as nonprofit leaders, you know, continue to push the envelope and say, no, this was just the beginning of the work. I mean, and we're here to help and collaborate and make it happen, but there's so much more that needs to be done so that we continue, like Christine said, that we continue to move people into dignity and, a way of.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hear the passion, right? It's like, this is what we live every day. And I think what we have seen is that more people are interested in this issue than ever before and interested in the real solutions. Because homelessness happens in every community. And I think it is possible for us to end homelessness in Santa Barbara. I think what we're seeing is more collaboration. We're seeing more funding, which we know we cannot do this without funding. I mean, as much as we all probably would love to as well, we need to pay our staff so that they can provide for their own families and they can then have the stability to really do this really complex work. So, it really does take an investment, a time and a money investment, really from everyone involved. Everyone can be part of that solution so that we can see the positive outcomes that you're hearing about today and you see in the videos. So I think it's a community issue and it needs a community solution.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well said. So I guess close to the end now. I know that many Women Fund members will be really interested in what you all think they might be able to do to help. We all know that the grants that the Women's Fund give can provide a big impact on things. But what other types of things do you think members of the Women's Fund could do to help?
I have a list. So first, absolutely, the funding, goes without saying, is so critical, and I'm going to keep emphasizing that flexible funding, allowing us to pay for things that government funding doesn't pay for, is so critical and so essential and so necessary and so valuable and helpful. Second, we need landlords. We need people who are willing to rent their space. If you own any kind of property, even just one unit, if you're willing to rent one unit to somebody, please call us and we'd be happy to talk to you. And if it's not to us, then we'll introduce you to one of our partners. We need housing for staff so that we can recruit people to come and live in Santa Barbara and work here, because we can't hire people because staff can't afford to live here. I have staff who share rooms in houses with 6 other people, and they're gainfully employed. And if you're willing to rent an apartment or a unit or a room to a staff member who works in social service, call me and I will find somebody for you. We need to educate the community, and we need to have discussions like this where people are able to ask questions safely and not feel shamed and not feel judged, and have an explanation and have somebody take the time to explain things to them. So if you want to have little cocktail parties or little events or lunches or want to sponsor some sort of gathering, I will show up and talk as long as you want me to. And I think it's really important to educate people. And then finally, we need volunteers, because there aren't enough staff for supportive services. And for all of these things that we're talking about, especially with the housing retention, we need people. So if you're willing to donate 6 months to a year where you say, I will continue to show up for John Doe, and I'll take John Doe to his doctor's appointment and to Trader Joe's and to CVS and out to go fishing for, off the pier for a day. If you will commit to working with one person for a certain amount of time, that's so helpful. We can't begin to cover everybody that we serve. And people who are low income and vulnerable, they're accustomed to having staff people change constantly on them. So it's like, okay, who's my caseworker today? And having a consistent volunteer who's a face, who people recognize and who they can build a relationship with and who shows up consistently is really helpful. So if you're willing to donate 6 months to a year to help somebody for any, consistent amount of time, call us and we'll connect you with somebody.
Well, Christine has a list.
Yeah.
Jennifer and Maggie.
I think she grabbed a lot of my list. The other thing I would just say though is back to kind of relationships with elected officials. Santa Barbara is a small community. And so, having these conversations, I love the come talk at the cocktail party. I think all of us would probably say we'll be there. We want to be able to share the information, but make sure that this is a top priority in your conversations and with those stakeholders, because so often, I think Maggie said it wonderfully, like people just step over or we give lunch or water, but these are humans, these are people, and they're dying on our streets if we don't get them off of there. So, let's make this a priority and let's make sure it's a priority conversation. It can be a difficult conversation, but even asking the question to electeds, what are you doing for homelessness? What's your priority around helping people get housed? That conversation sparks interest, and then they know their constituents are involved and invested.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. When we started showing up to city council meetings, suddenly, Santa Barbara City started to do things. I mean, and it definitely was because, the line of speakers was at 12, public comment was at 12 people wanting to say something about what the city was doing. And so they finally acted. So absolutely correct about, kind of putting the fire to their feet. As far as the Women's Fund I personally, because I sit on both sides, because I've been a grant recipient, but I also am a Women's Fund member, I just want to say that I am so grateful for the amazing work pension that Women Fund members take, to learn about problems, to understand what we're going through, to spend the time with us, even though sometimes it's like, I just want to pull them out and go, really? Are you going to ask me another question? But the point is that what you do is you help me hone my game. You help me, focus into what it is I need to focus into. And I've been extremely grateful for all of that input. And it has made us actually a better organization. And I want to say that the education of our local women in philanthropy, by allowing them, to join a group of women, for $275, you can join a group of 10 and you can learn about large scale philanthropy and the charitable organizations that this philanthropy supports. I find that to be such a beautiful thing. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much, Maggie. I was hoping that as our last question, each of you might have thought about something, your last thought that you might want to leave everyone with. I don't know who might want to go first.
I'm happy to jump in. I think, this has been such an amazing experience, and I know we've had to do this during COVID, but, just having the Women's Fund is part of the solution. And I think that that's amazing. And I think, we are all still learning what needs to happen, and it changes as our population changes. And so, continuing that education and continuing to be involved is going to make the community as a whole better. So I'm very appreciative for the opportunity, for the space to have these discussions, and really welcome tours at our site. If folks really do want to come and see and get involved, we offer volunteers opportunities every day. And it's just a nice way to connect with people who are currently unhoused, but hopefully will be housed soon. So thank you all.
Thanks, Jennifer.
I'll go. So I just want to leave you with the word to be inspired. Our work has just started with getting our unsheltered off the streets into transitional housing with all the support services they need to be successful once they are permanently housed. We have to do this with a level of enthusiasm and inspiration, and the fact that things are not always going to go the way that we want them to, but how do we work around those things? So, these incredible partnerships and relationships that we're building, like even within this panel, to, helping and collaborating collaborating in whatever little bit we can do. We don't necessarily do it ourselves, like the partnership of DSS, Public Library, and Neighborhood Navigation Centers. I may have helped facilitate that, but I'm stepping back from it. It's not my work. It's not what I do. But because of who we are able to create these types of partnerships and collaborations with our blessing. And so I just want people to continue to be inspired by the work that we're doing and understand that, we're just starting and it's going to get so much better.
Thanks, Maggie. Christine, you get the last word.
I get the last word. I have been moved to tears, I would say, over the last couple of years when I see the level of commitment and dedication from staff. And it's been a long couple of years, and especially for the staff that actually still are remaining and still plugging and still working to house people. And just on Friday, I received a text from one of my staff telling us that they had housed 3 veterans on Friday. And just the joy and the pride and the commitment. And it's been a long couple of years for all of us. And I think that we all have to step up and help a little bit. We have to help people